there is a journey, and any entrepreneur who's been on the journey of success knows that you have to. There's the saying that the actual reward of being a successful entrepreneur is who you have to become to be a successful entrepreneur. You have to evolve. It's your journey. The person I am today is not the person I was 10 years ago, or even 2 years ago, or even a year ago. I keep evolving as a human being, as an entrepreneur. And the same thing is with your business. So that evolution of who you are as a person is critical to your success.
Welcome to Risk and Rise, the podcast where we explore the journey of overcoming the fear of failure, embracing risk, and achieving success in entrepreneurship, creativity, and personal growth. I'm your host, Talana Simpson, and I'm thrilled to embark on this journey with you. Together we'll discover the strategies, insights, and shifts in our thinking and attitudes that are needed to turn setbacks into stepping stones and transform fear into fuel for success. So grab your coffee, get comfortable, and let's dive into today's episode of Risk and Rise. Today we're going to be learning from Allon Raiz, someone who has been involved in entrepreneurship himself for many decades. And his main business, Raiz Corp, is one of the sole genuine incubators supporting over 500 businesses in Africa. So Allon has had a lot of experience, not only in his own entrepreneurial journey, but in watching and supporting and working with thousands of other businesses and entrepreneurs. So let's hear a bit about what Allon Raiz can add to our quest to risk and rise. No way. Good morning, Allon. Thank you so much for joining us on Risk and Rise. And maybe to get the conversation going, when you hear Risk and Rise, what comes to mind from your past?
I think the first thing is obviously risk and entrepreneurs' relationship with risk, which is actually an interesting misnomer or misunderstanding about entrepreneurs' relationship with risk. And Rise is about not just moving up in the world, but also getting up again and again, re-rising and re-rising, because the journey you tend to trip quite a bit.
Was there anything in your past then that, like a story where you felt that you took a risk and got up again?
Oh, my whole story is that, Talana. My whole story is taking risk and tripping and falling down and getting up again. That story is a 30-year long story of trying things, failing, getting up again, trying new things, failing, getting up again. I mean, I'm 56 this year. I've been doing this for more than 30 years, this entrepreneurship gig. And I'm actually literally starting, I'm in a startup again. I've started not instead of Raiz Corp and Raiz Corp, I'm involved in a brand new startup that I've been working on. And so at the age of 56, I'm starting again. And I'm tripping and I'm falling down and I've got scraped knees and a bruised ego from a lot of rejection. And yeah, so it doesn't stop. I think the perception that there is some place, there's some peak where you can sit and relax and look at all that you've succeeded at, and now it's all going to be just dandy. I think that's a fallacy. It's not real.
And I think that's part of the message of Risk and Rise, is that it's a continual journey of putting yourself out there and dealing with whatever comes your way and just picking yourself up again and carrying on. And you've spoken so much about failure, specifically in the realm of entrepreneurship. So I would like to just encourage, viewers and listeners of Risk and Rise to just Google Allon Raiz and failure, and you'll find a wealth of information. So what I wanted to maybe ask...
Not exactly what I want to be famous for, but but I have had my fair share of it. Yeah.
But also you've spoken so much about it, so I didn't want to like just repeat what's so available in so many wonderful formats out there. So I thought maybe, I think you put some of the context on the table already, that entrepreneurship is a continuous journey of ups and downs. So maybe, I don't know if there's just anything just to summarize how you see failure, just to provide the context, because then I want to just go and ask you a few more how we deal with it.
Yeah, so failure for me, I think, as the number one point on failure is that it's inevitable. It's unavoidable, in my opinion. Number two, it's actually not so nice. And if you can have, there's a lot of glory and what they call, struggle porn out there, which is around sort of glorifying failure. I don't glorify it. I just accept it as part of the journey. It's inevitable, and you have to deal with it. But it's not nice. It really doesn't feel good at the time. And it's quite devastating for many entrepreneurs who don't get up from failure. 96%, we know that 96% of businesses, don't in a 10-year period, at some point, have a failure incident or moment, and don't get up again, and because it's exhausting. The other thing is about failure is a really personal thing. It's like to me, what skill that I've had to learn over the years is to try and discern between the business failing or a model failing and me failing. And I'll come back to what that discernment is. But in the time that you're in a project and it fails, it's quite, and you were the architect of that project. I mean, it's very hard to say, well, it's the project that failed, not me that failed, because I was the architect of that project. But where the discernment happens is, okay, let that go now and stand up again. And that's where failure, is released from you, is when you get up again. That's when failure is released from you, because as long as you take the learning and the negative impetus from the negative energy from it, in other words, the fear or the drive, I don't want that feeling again. If you take that energy from the failure, you can use that to allow you to succeed into the future. If you sit in that failure, if you sit in that failure for too long, and you woe is me for too long, and you become self-flagellating to the point of that you don't move, then that's problematic. And many entrepreneurs get to that point that they go, oh, it's me, and then they don't get up again. So I think those are just some salient points around failure.
And then you mentioned your discernment between you feeling like a failure versus the business or model failing. How have you been able to make that distinction? Or
as I said, now that in the moment there is no discernment. In that moment there is, because you are the architect of failure. It's you. You made those decisions. You didn't omitted to do something or made a bad decision. You did something that was wrong, and as a result of you, positive or negative, you've created failure. So that's, in that moment, there is no discernment. Where the discernment happens is what you do afterwards. Yeah. If you stay in that space, then there is no discernment. If you get out, then you leave that behind. If you stand up again, you leave that behind. And you say, okay, I take the energy and I separate myself from this failure, and then I try again.
And we say so much that there is no such thing as, well, I say no such thing as failure, is only feedback. And everyone talks about you must learn from failure. Failure you can't learn if you're not failing.
Yeah.
And yet it just seems like a cliche now. We keep saying it. Why do we have to keep saying it? Because it's almost like, do people not learn, or is it? So my question was more, what have you found maybe some of the blocks from people to actually learn from the failure? So it sounds like the one is if they wallow too much in it and they can't then step out of that. They can't channel that pain of that moment of realizing they failed into energy to get up again. Are there any other blocks that stop us from learning?
Yeah, I don't know about blocks, but I can tell you what I do in failure. I don't know what the block. For me, failure has got a couple of components. Number one, it's to acknowledge it. Okay, I failed. Number two, it's to give yourself time in it. You have to actually give yourself time in it. And in my opinion, 24 hours is like the max amount of time. I suppose if it's a huge failure, you might take a little bit longer than that. But in the day-to-day types of failure that you have, where you lose a big account or you lose a very significant valuable employee, or whatever the case may be, you allow yourself to sort of lick your wounds and feel the pain, and feel sorry for yourself. The third thing is then to start that reflection as to go, what happened, where did I go wrong, what did I do, and how do I learn from it? So that happens after that or during that. And then the next thing is to take action. And so for me, my standard response to both failure and success, and it's important that I underline it, both of those things, is to take action. So when I lose an account or something bad happens, my wife knows that at night I'll be working through the night. Excuse me. Moving, not physically moving, but doing stuff in order to putting a list together, starting to action and moving forward based on that failure, trying to move myself out of there in a very active and deliberate way. But the same thing is true when I succeed. In other words, if I've won a big account, I have the same response to it, is that my fear is complacency, right? It's the other side of that coin. And I can become complacent. So my reaction to that is to work, is to put the list together and say, how do I replicate this? How do I learn from success? We've talked a lot about learning from failure, but there's a lot to learn from success if you look at it and say, how do I replicate this pattern? How do I replicate what happened here so that I can do more of this? As opposed to taking all the glory and saying, oh, I'm so clever and I'm so, I'm such a strategist. I worked this all out. As opposed to what did I do specifically here and how do I replicate it? How do I bottle that in a process, in a methodology to ensure that I can do that again and again in a replicable way? And then one step further is how do I then take that bottled success, so to speak, that formula, and allow other people in my organization to do that as well? How do they replicate that to ensure that the success has got leverage within the organization? Other people know how to succeed using that methodology.
So it sounds like part of that is also separating yourself from the success. So you say it's looking at it as rather success or failure is just different processes. One reaches a different result to the other. So what is the steps and stages so that we can replicate the one that leads to the better results, more useful results?
So if you follow that maybe as a pattern, and I like how if you don't create a sentiment or a spin to failure, and you just say it's a result. One's a positive result and one's a negative result. If success is a positive result, failure is a negative result. And so if you just look at it as a result, and then when I get the result, how do I reflect and learn from it? And then how do I implement based on that? Then it's the same thing. it's just as humans, we want more positive results than negative results. But
Yes.
negative results are part of the journey and are very often the impetus for positive results. And to my point around becoming complacent, a positive result can be the input to a negative result. That's complacency.
Yeah. Because I did want to ask you more about there's a lot about the fear of failing, but also in people, there's a fear of success. So I don't know if it relates to this a bit, but my sense is some people are actually scared that if they put in the hard work and actually do what they know they need to do, they will succeed. And that has certain implications within their ecosystem or their family or their friends. I don't know if you've come across that and all the thousands of people you've worked with in their
Yeah,
businesses.
I've heard that before, and I sort of understand it. I sort of understand it. I don't personally understand the fear of success. I don't have a empathetic relationship with that state of mind. But I can imagine that certain people realize that if they're successful, it'll put them in a different position. It'll put them out there. It'll expose them, and perhaps they feel like they are imposters, and that they'll be found out if they're successful, that they didn't deserve to be successful at some level.
Mm.
So if you follow that kind of thinking, then deservedness is a big part of success. That this whole thing that I deserve success, and in my journey, speaking to my mentor, who's been my mentor for those 30 years as an entrepreneur. His number one determinant of a successful entrepreneur is deservedness. If in a conversation with a young entrepreneur, he gets a sense that they feel that they deserve success, and not in an arrogant, like not entitled. There's a difference between entitled and deservedness. Deservedness is an inner thing where I work hard, I'm smart, I deserve this. There's no one who deserves it more than me or less than me. I deserve it equally to everyone else. If that is authentically innate in a human being, then they're far more likely to succeed. If it's not innate, then work on it. Work on your deservedness that you deserve, and that's also about self-confidence. And it's in that realm of self-confidence. Yeah,
self-worth and self-worth.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah, and I make a big distinction between those, the self-confidence and self-worth, because it's our worth as a human being that I think is foundational to us engaging with fear as just a result versus a definition of ourselves.
Yes, correct.
Yeah. So I wanted to ask a bit also more about how society sees failure, but maybe just to end off, is there any other inner work that you think we need to do as entrepreneurs in order to handle the ups and downs of the journey? We've left out anything?
Yeah, I think another tool, maybe not work, but another tool that I think is very important is your relationship with time. So, if you look across my 30 years, I'm very confident, Tilana, that I failed more than you. I really am confident I failed more than you. But in the moment, sometimes there's been many of those failures where I've honestly, and I'm being honest here, that I felt that this is it. This is the one that's going to take. This is the meteor hitting Earth. This is the one that's going to take me out. I mean, COVID was one of those for many people, and for me included. And then when you look at a longer timeline, you realize you're far more hardy and than you think. And so in the moment, I've learned over time that you've got to have a different relationship with the timing. So let's say you have a very bad month. Well, you might have a good quarter. And let's say you have a bad quarter. You might have a good or bad year. It's just about the time construct. And you might have a bad business, but the next business might be over two businesses. It might be good. And we hear many people say, I failed in the last business, but I succeeded in this business. So it's your relationship with the construct of time and success. So a failure now doesn't mean failure. It just means failure now. It doesn't mean failure. Full stop.
And that's very useful to get up again, knowing that this moment will pass and tomorrow is a new day. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's hard, whenever you say that to an entrepreneur in that moment, you say, listen, I know how you feel now, and I know it's not, you can't see through this, but it is, you'll get through this. I'm often in that conversation with the businesses I invest in, the entrepreneurs, and I'm mostly right. I'm 99% right in that it does pass, and we do laugh about it. I don't sometimes not laughing, but we do reminisce about it. Remember when that happened and you thought it was all over? Don't you wish you had? Don't you wish you had those problems? Now.
Not these ones.
Yeah.
Yeah. So then looking at broader in terms of the society in South Africa, the ecosystem or the just people in general, for me, in order for us to change the way we see failure and not let us stop us from trying new things or starting new businesses, we need to work on ourselves. And we've covered a lot of that in the work. But also as society, I think we need to be more supportive of people who are stumbling or going through rough patches. So now you speak a lot about societies that are fear-based versus shame-based, and that South Africa is much more of a shame-based society. So I wondered if you could just touch on that, and maybe what can we as people who are wanting to see others who are more entrepreneurial. I mean, I'd love to see more entrepreneurs take that leap and get going. So how do I support them, as a bystander in society?
Okay, so the basis of that kind of thinking is actually, it's not my thinking. It's a conversation I had just literally randomly at a lunch table at the World Economic Forum in Davos in, I think, 2011. I sat opposite a Professor Diane Francis, who was a Canadian living in America. And her whole hypothesis was that the difference between the Canadian entrepreneurial environment and the American entrepreneurial environment was shame-based versus fear-based. America being fear-based, I don't want to fail. And Canada being shame-based is that I'm ashamed to fail. And although in the moment it might feel quite similar, the shame is very much shameful because of your family, your society shames you and it's a punitive environment. So the classic and very cliched example of the American investor is when the entrepreneur comes to the investor and says, "Will you please invest in me?" And he says, "Son, have you failed?" "No, never failed." "Go fail 3 times and come back to me." Whereas in a shame, that's a fear-based society. In a shame-based society, it's have you failed? Okay, I will invest in you. If you have failed, I won't invest in you because the interpretation is failure equals incompetence. And so if you look at the construct of the families in South Africa, there'll be that man failed, shame man. And if you think about our language in South Africa, shame man. When a South African goes overseas and says, shame, Americans or Europeans don't actually understand how we reference the word shame. We're saying, oh, what a pity. But we're using the word shame. It's shameful, which is not the same as pity. Shame is a hugely negative connotation. And in our banking environment, we penalize people for failing. So an example of that would be, in COVID, when somebody was a very, very competent entrepreneur, just happened to be in an industry that was impacted by COVID, which was outside their locus of control, and got decimated by COVID. They couldn't get supply of something, or the whole industry shut down as a result of it. They were brilliant entrepreneurs, and then this thing happened. My view is that they'll be brilliant entrepreneurs after that as well. But yet our banking system will see so and so failed, and so black mark against their name, and they then live with this residue, this structural residue that prevents them from actually borrowing money again and getting back into the fray of entrepreneurship. And so what I was very conscious of as during and after COVID was who is failing and why, and started looking for entrepreneurs who were great entrepreneurs that had failed or were in the process of failing during that time, but it wasn't as a result of their competence, it was just the context. And so back those entrepreneurs, because they were, in my opinion, were going to be winners post-COVID.
Yeah. So is there any way that we can get South Africa to start thinking differently around this? Or do you think it's like so ingrained in us that we're just going to have to find ways to deal with this shame-based culture?
I think it's more and more conversations. I think it's in the media. I think it's people like you who talk about it. When we normalize, and you can see how I've normalized failure right at the beginning of this interview. It's going to happen. It's not this big boogeyman that is going to jump out from underneath your cupboard or your bed or wherever. It's there. It's part of this journey. It's like getting sick. If I say to you, you're going to get flu, or you're going to have a stomach bug, or you're going to whatever, you know that's going to happen. It's not. It's. I don't want to say it's impossible, but it's close to impossible for you to go through life without being sick at some level. So it's just there. You don't not get out of bed because you're afraid of getting the flu. Well, I hope you don't.
No. So then we as society must remember that it's okay that others fail, and I would hope that we support them and ask them, what did they learn? Help them get up again and get going, and, as you say, have more of these conversations.
Yeah, I think it's not just society. I suppose everyone's part of society. I think it's also structurally within the banking system and in other environments. I think there needs to be more sensitivity as to the reasons behind failure itself. I remember speaking to a bank pre-COVID, way before COVID, talking about the huge opportunity around failed entrepreneurs as a product to go into to the market and look for entrepreneurs who have failed for reasons beyond their influence. Just really that. It's hard to do that, but they're there. So an example might be a change in law, or you've got a factory that uses a lot of water, and then the municipality doesn't provide you with water. In both those examples, you could argue that the entrepreneur should have anticipated those as big risks and should have put things in place. But if you can work beyond that and say that maybe there were other reasons why they were understood, but they were so unexpected in terms of that it would happen. Those entrepreneurs were running perfectly until the water ran out, or perfectly until the electricity ran out.
Yeah.
So what I would look for those and then back them and fund them again. I said to the bank, there's a whole product there. And they battled, and I went quite high up in the bank, and they battled with us because structurally it didn't. Where's the credit score and this score? Because the banks work the DNA in a certain way, and they battle with that. And so, but if you think about what happens is there's a whole angel funding environment and a VC environment that's can operate in the space of risk and can re-lens that. So there's even opportunity outside the banking environment. So let's get more of that going and to support those entrepreneurs that are great entrepreneurs that have just had just a bad piece of luck.
Yeah, bad circumstance. Yeah. Right. When we started, I asked you about Risk and Rise, and you spoke a bit about risk, and that is a big misunderstanding about risk. So how I like to talk about becoming risk fit. That is almost like a fitness that we need to develop in terms of our attitude and our knowledge of how to take risk. So what have you, when you say there's a misunderstanding of risk amongst entrepreneurs, what do you refer to or mean?
You know, the cliche or the thought around entrepreneurs is that they're massive risk takers. There's a huge amount of research that shows that they actually are not big risk takers. When you look at the where the focus is on the risk is on their capability. It's about their capability. So I use a metaphor is that, you know, if I have to jump across a chasm where if I fall into the chasm, I'm dead. Entrepreneurs will jump if they think they can get across. They'll take the running leap and they will jump if they think they get across. They're not going to, if they don't think they're going to get across, they generally don't jump. Because so the reference point around risk is not the risk in the project or in the business. It's not the risk. It's their relationship with their ability to navigate their personal ability to navigate that. So an example of that was, okay, I'm going to do this, but I don't have the money. Now that sounds like very risky. But if I believe I have the ability to find the money, well, then you say, I believe I have the ability to find the money. I'll get the money. Don't worry about it. I'll get the money. That's a belief in self. So it's not it's where the arrow points in terms of the risk. And generally the arrow comes back to, okay, there is a risk. Now, what is my can I close that gap personally? Can I get the money? Can I get the skill? Can I find those people with skills? Can I find the market? Can I work out the product market fit, et cetera, et cetera? It's always about I in that calculation around risk. It's not that we just go blindly running into a space.
So it sounds like entrepreneurship is a huge part of it is actually just personal development. It's such a big journey of growth.
My mentor said in my 20s that success as an entrepreneur is 99% psychology, managing your own psychology, and 1% good luck and 10% hard work. Or 10%, sorry, 1% hard work and 10% good luck. And I never understood that. And it's a metaphoric percentage, but basically saying the majority is how you manage your own psychology in success and failure, right? And it's how you evolve as an entrepreneur. Then the 1% of hard work is that, you know, it is about hard work. I can't take that away. In my experience with entrepreneurs, the majority of successful entrepreneurs that I'm exposed to are hard work. It's very hard workers, and they can outwork most people. And then the third thing of why 10% in terms of luck is because there's a huge amount of randomness that happens. And what entrepreneurs, when you are alive to opportunity that sort of floats past you, the entrepreneur will lens that as opportunity. The non-entrepreneur won't even see the opportunity. So it's how you see that inverted commas luck, which is opportunity that presents in front of you, and then the action, the work is what you do around it. And then how do you manage your psychology around that, you know, in terms of the down days and the up days. So those three things are huge. That's all personal. So I'm a massive believer in personal development as an entrepreneur is a huge um, um, input to success. Now, I know a lot of very successful entrepreneurs who I don't think are self-reflective. I don't think have done the work on themselves. I really have seen that. I need to be real about that. But my also experience is that they tend not to hold on to that success. Not all, because they're outliers. Mm. But when they become successful, they tend to not hold on to that success for a long period of time. Because there is a journey, and any entrepreneur who's been on the journey of success knows that you have to. There's the saying that the actual reward of being a successful entrepreneur is who you have to become to be a successful entrepreneur. You have to evolve. It's your journey. The person I am today is not the person I was 10 years ago, or even 2 years ago, or even a year ago. I keep evolving as a human being, as an entrepreneur, as a business partner, as a mentor, and even as a father and as a husband. That journey those journeys affect one another. So if I could take that metaphor a little further to children, I've got a child at university. Being a father to a university kid is not the same as being a father to a 2-year-old where you're still changing nappies. It's a completely different thing you have to be. And the same thing is with your business. So that evolution of who you are as a person is critical to your success.
Yeah. Absolutely. Is there anything else then, just to finish off talking about taking risks and managing the fear around it?
I feel you're putting me on the spot always around risk. I'm too scared to say anything. No, not to say. No, I think I've ventilated the subject.
Okay. I want to shift gear a bit, because part of why Risk and Rise actually came about is my one matchstick story. And you've played a role in that. Just to very briefly, because I have spoken in other episodes about the one matchstick story, but I started with a single matchstick and I've been trying to trade it up into office space. And the goal was always to help startup entrepreneurs. And I know at some point through that journey, I got a phone call on a late Wednesday night, and it was from you. I don't know if you remember, you had Googled yourself, I think, and found that I had made reference to you in one of the interviews that I had about someone I admired and would love to learn more from. And you phoned me up and actually offered me the office space then, and I said no. It didn't meet what I had envisioned then. And I think it's just touching on your story about how we evolve, as humans, as people, as well as in our ideas, and that I think the one matchstick needed to evolve a bit more. And then when I was ready, trying to find the end result, the office, the landlord, as I called it, I came to you first because you had obviously seen something or like the story all those years ago. And you said yes, and we ended up trading, and I, gave you or traded with you for the office space, the TV, the projector, the podium, and the blinds for your one training room. So we've made our final trade, and now I have 6 months office space to offer a startup to help them get going, get their journey going, and if they have a block around, I need a venue to get going. Hopefully this would be a great opportunity for them. But maybe just to ask you, like, why did you end up trading with me in the end?
Well, when it was, I got a Google alert. I get Google alerts daily, and when I got a Google alert, I go check to see it. And when I saw your story and there, I thought you had put yourself out there. You had taken risk. You had been vulnerable. Put yourself in a vulnerable space. And to me, and I don't want to say the universe rewards that. And a lot of people ask me to be a mentor or ask me for things and email me and come through to me on social media, and I don't respond to everything. But something in the vulnerability of your story and the risk in your story and the novelty in your story at the time appealed to me. And so I felt the need to reward that novelty, that risk, that vulnerability. And so I called you and to explore it, not necessarily to train, but to just explore the possibility, and then found an authenticity in your motive and the belief that you would do it. And so I stepped in to be just part of that story, and thinking that it would pass, go through. Now I just be one of the steps. And watching you, I mean, it's been many years, and
Yes.
watching your journey and your actual perseverance through it. And I'm sure many times you've also thought, is this ever going to happen? Will I ever get there? It must have been self-doubt. Just your level of perseverance. You epitomize the entrepreneurial journey, and then also the whole thing about trading up by moving to a matchstick and the concept of this improvement of value. If you think about what an entrepreneur does, an entrepreneur takes things and adds their magic, their thinking, their skills, and then turns it into something else, where it's a physical product or a service, and it's through sheer will, and they create value, and that value creates value. And so if you think about the story, the person who's going to get this office hot desking space and all the other benefits, that your story has evolved to having a knock-on effect of somebody else's story. And so their story will be different as a result of your story. So I just love that. It's just beautifully metaphoric and authentic to entrepreneurship.
Oh, thanks. And then you're going to be one of the judges, along with Mongisi, Mtati, and myself, where we're asking people to send in their applications, and we're going to narrow it down to the top 5 and then choose who the person will be. If you were to just give a message to whoever that person would be, like what kind of person are we looking for, or what would be a tip for you that you would offer them in order to find the one matchstick startup, as I'm calling it?
I think the mission of BS, that authenticity, about being authentic, but also that there is a level of commitment in that. You want to find commitment. There's too many flaky people in our entrepreneurial environment, where they say things, but they're not true, and they might feel that it's true for today, but it won't be true tomorrow. So to me, it's about being authentic and being able to also express their journey, what they see, for their journey, where this is a stepping stone in their journey. If it's the end point, I don't think that's really appealing. It needs to be, well, this is going to lead to that, which is going to lead to that. And so, that luck I spoke about, let this be that piece of luck that happened in their life. I mean, if I think about it, there's a guy who emailed me, many, many years ago, asking to work for me for free, landed up being my driver, then my PA, and then I took him through every single department in Raiz Corp. Not every, but many of the departments, and then kicked him out and sent him into the world to become an entrepreneur. And I was in the property industry, and let him go for a while now, re-engaging him to see if there's something we can do together as partners. And so you go from literally a drivers working for free to partners in the property industry. I love those
Yes.
sort of journeys. And so maybe this is part of that journey, not necessarily with me, but the person sitting next to them in the hot desk.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's a great opportunity. So yeah, applications are open, and if you go to onematchstick.co.za/search, you'll get all the details of how to apply. I have just a few rapid fire questions for you, just as we start to wrap up. So it's just the first thing that comes to mind. So I know we've spoken a lot about it, but what comes to mind when I say failure?
Inevitable.
What is your secret weapon for bouncing back from a setback?
Action.
What's the most important lesson you've learned as an entrepreneur?
Take action, even in failure. And success.
That's just so true. That action is
everything.
It gets you out of so many things. Yeah.
Move.
What's the best advice you've ever received as an entrepreneur?
Don't take yourself too seriously.
And what inspires you to get out of bed in the morning?
My vision, and now my new entrepreneurial startup at the age of 56.
Awesome. So just as any last parting thoughts then around the whole concept of risking and rising that you'd like to part to, especially those that are in the wings, you know what I mean, waiting for whatever, I don't know what, before they step forward and actually start an entrepreneurial journey?
Yeah, maybe the last parting thought is to entrepreneurs who are maybe starting and in that space, is to own. When you have got internal locus of control, when you believe you to a large extent own the outcome of your success, not completely, but to a large extent. I use the words on purpose. And it means you seldom blame. You don't blame society. You don't blame the past. You don't blame your parents. You don't blame your previous boss. You don't blame. As soon as you can move away from blame and own, you will own. You'll own your own success. And so to me, a big thing that I find right now with entrepreneurs is that they got the gift of the gab, but they are just trip up on the blame. It's because of this, because of that. They just own nothing. And so that just becomes this anchor that just holds them back, and it becomes incredibly, it's very comforting to not own your stuff, because it's somebody else. But as soon as you own your stuff, you land up owning stuff.
Yeah.
I think that's a nice tweet, huh?
Yes. Well, thank you so much. And I realize I haven't asked you yet, but how can people get hold of you or find out more about Raiz Corp?
Raizcorp.com, that's raizcrp.com. And then also on X, not Twitter, on X, and I'm not so big on Instagram. I'm still a little old-fashioned, but I put stuff out there every day. Yeah, and there's lots on the website, lots of information.
Yeah. Great, thank you, Allon.
Thank you, Talana.
I'm Talana Simpson, and this has been Risk and Rise. And in true entrepreneurial style, I am really open to feedback. I know it's how I can learn and grow and also make the show better. So I would love to hear from you if you have some suggestions on where I can improve in terms of this show and in terms of what you would like to hear more of in Risk and Rise. Please do get in touch at hello@riskandrise.co.za. Also, do give us a follow on your favorite podcast app And have a great week as we risk and rise together. Thank you for joining me on Risk and Rise, where we face fears, conquer challenges, and rise above adversity to achieve our dreams. Find out more at riskandrise.co.za.